wasn't here the past 2 weeks. She's been sick.
Who's that?
Hazel.
Oh, yeah, I didn't know that. I thought she was playing.
Well, the past couple of chapters, like in chapter 7, Paul is talking about whatever state you were in when you get the calling from God to come, that's the state you should remain. And you got to remember, Corinth is a very wicked city. So think about that for a second. Whatever state you're in, that's where you're to remain. Well, that's sort of strange. If you were circumcised, remain circumcised. Don't become uncircumcised. If you were uncircumcised, remain. And that's what he talks about. If you are free, remain free. If you are a slave, remain slave. And that's the things he pretty much talks about. But what if you extend that thinking just a little bit more? Did you ever think about that? Pardon? Corinth is an extremely wicked city. The people there probably have, like America is today, divorce about 50%, right? Probably Corinth is about the same. They're as wicked as we are today. So, divorce is being so common, it would not be unusual to meet somebody and find out they've been divorced 3 or 4 times. I wouldn't be surprised. Would you? Yes. Okay. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I was going to say 70.
Of them are
4, 5, 6 times. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
Well, I've been to quite a few different states and heard a lot of different preachers and visiting gospel preachers talk on these subjects. What do we know about divorce? Well, in Malachi, God hates divorce, right? What about marriage? One man, one woman, right? What about Jacob? Well, I mean, he was given Leah to be his wife instead of Rachel. And then after the bridal week, he was given Rachel to be married. And he married her. She was barren for a few years while Leah's producing son after son after son. So what did she do? She gave her handmaiden to him to be his wife, so thereby produce children for him. Well, Leah's getting smart too. I mean, she knows she wasn't the favorite. Rachel was always the favorite, so she gave her handmaiden to Jacob to be a wife. But notice, never once did you hear divorce. There's no admonition, no condemnation to Jacob for having 4 wives. What about King David? Supposedly over 200 wives, almost 1,000 concubines. I can't imagine being married to 2 women, much less that many. But there's no condemnation until Bathsheba, where David was there. And he was a fair-haired boy. He was a favorite. How do we reconcile all these things together and come up with an idea of what is marriage, divorce, and what God intends for us? I think we're right. One man, one woman. That's the way it's been from the very, very beginning. God hates divorce. Pardon? Yeah. But, well, I can't remember. Malachi 2 or 4, or somewhere right in there. It's one of these. And, it states pretty much, God hates divorce. So, but in Jacob and David's case, there was never a divorce. So is that sanctioning polygamy? No, I'm not saying that. I'm not trying to say that, but I mean, they did it. So how do we reconcile that in our minds? Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. He winked. Yes. Well, that marriage ceremony that they had, he did not know he was being given Leah. So that leads me to believe that somehow or another the face of the woman that he was marrying would be covered so that he wouldn't know that this is Leah that he's married, because he tells Laban, "Why have you deceived me? I've worked 7 years for you for Rachel." Yes. How do we reconcile all this to our own basic core beliefs? And, that's the reason why I say, here's Corinth, a very, very wicked city, probably a divorce rate that's super high, and have several, whatever state you're in, when God called you to come to him. So you've been divorced 4 times. God, the church reaches out to you and studies with you, and you come in and you want to be baptized. Whatever marriage you're in now, or do you have to do like a lot of the brotherhood say, you have to divorce that person and go back to your very first wife before you can be baptized? That raises that kind of question. You ever think about that? Our God's a loving God. He knows all. He knows our hearts. He knows our minds. You remember here about 5 or 6 weeks ago, I was talking about those 3 notorious murderers, and Ted Bundy had been taught by a ladies' Bible class, one of our sister churches, and he requested to be baptized. Should we have baptized him? One of the brothers in the church went out to the prison and baptized Ted Bundy for the remission of sins. Should he have been with those horrendous murders that he committed? Dahmer. Jeffrey Dahmer, that's it. Yeah, okay. I mean, should we have baptized him? God knows. That's the key, I think. God knows. It's not our decision to deny him that baptism. Yeah. Well, whatever. We, uh, that's where it gets really, really tricky, I think, for us, is that if we're going to be the Judaizer and sit there, the letter of the law says this, there is no compassion. Haven't we put ourselves in the position of God then, exercising judgment on people? And that's the reason why I say, like with Jeffrey Dahmer, a lot of people, they did not like him being baptized. Now, God will decide when he gets there, right? On that judgment day. What about these people in Corinth that have had multiple marriages? And one of them finally comes in here and says, hey, I want to be baptized. I have been a sinner all my life. Well, you have to leave your current wife and go back to the very first one to establish what God ordains us to do. One man, one woman for life. He hates divorce. Wait a minute. There's a lot of problems with that, isn't it? That, that's what I'm saying. Can I extend this idea of Paul saying, whatever state you're in, when God calls you, can I extend that to him and say, I'm going to baptize you, and I'll tell you right now, I'll be hard pressed to do it. But I think, and this is just me, I think that I would prefer to baptize him and let God decide his fate. I would extend more teaching to him and let him know God believes one man, one woman for life. He hates divorce. If that man decides that he has to divorce that current woman he's with and go back to his first, if that is possible even, that's his decision, not mine. I'm not going to tell him he has to do it before he gets baptized. Now, does that make sense? That's not my decision. God's going to be the judge. You see where I'm coming at? I'm throwing it all back to God now. It's not my decision. And I'm not going to sit there and tell you that's what you have to do. I'm not a judge. Never have been, never will. Well, yeah, I was one. Military, you do that kind of stuff. But can I extend that to him? That's right. Okay, I agree with that 100%. I agree. I agree with you 100% on that. And that's the reason why I say I can extend that idea of Paul saying, whatever state you're in, when God calls you to come, remain in that state. And I know that's a very slippery slope. And I know it raises a lot of questions and a lot of grief. But I've had brothers that have gotten up and preached this and said, if I knew that the man had been divorced one time and now he came forward, that I would not baptize him. To me, that is super harsh because Paul is, and all through Corinthians, is trying to say, be compassionate, be open-minded, be loving. And if we're to be like this, like our God is, be forgiving. God's going to make that decision in the judgment day. It's not on us to make that judgment. We need to be careful. When are we judging and when are we not? That's the reason why I'm sort of walking on eggshells here and sort of trying to get away from getting hit with the shots, because it is a tricky. Mm-hmm. But doing more study and try to find out. I'm trying to use the examples. Um, mhm. No, it's not. Yes. Yeah. Pretty slim. A hardened criminal. Hmm. Well, he was ultimately killed in prison. Uh, yeah. Which side should we err on, though? I think that comes down to the ultimate question. And I agree with you, is that it's a very, very, very tough situation to be in. It happened once that I know of. I've heard of other examples, but I don't know them personally. So what do? It's a very, very tough situation. Much prayer, much studying needs to be done. Where do we err? Err on the side of understanding and compassion? Should we err on that side, like God wants us to do? Or should we be Judaizers and just, this is what the law says? God hates divorce. Mm-hmm. But see, the Bible doesn't tell us about these kind of examples that are coming up that occur in our society today. Like Chuck was saying, Jamaica, a divorce rate of 80%. How do you teach somebody down there these truths? Extremely difficult. Yeah. They just live together. Yeah, but how are you to inquire into their private life? How far can you go to find out the truth of their lives before you baptize them? No, it won't. Nothing. And I think that's what I'm trying to get at, is that I can't judge what their hearts and minds are like. And if they come forward, I might not like it very much. But if they ask for baptism, I could do it. It's not my decision. It was theirs, and God knows their mind, God knows their heart. It's incumbent upon me to go ahead and go through the baptism, and God will do the judging. And I've got to let it go at that. Yeah. No, he didn't. Believe this. That's it. So using those examples, then if a guy comes forward, you have no right to ask him his current status and with relationships with various different women, his wife. You have no right then, I guess. Would that be safe to say?
Also,
No, no, no.
well, they're baptized. They're God's problem.
No, no, no.
And we can't do that either.
No. I would disagree with that concept completely. We have got to teach them and give them further instruction. I mean, they've only got the milk of it now. Now we've got to give them the meat. That's their problem, not mine.
Our responsibility.
Yes. Well, the reason why I say this is there's so many different things that people have come to Corinthians and try to use these as you shall not baptize somebody that's been married 3 times. You shall not do this. You can't eat meat. Paul has told us in chapter 8, food sacrificed to idols. It's okay for us to eat it. Now, suppose I come over for supper tomorrow, and as soon as you come over, I say, this meat? Yeah, I went down to the temple, and I got the meat there. It was sacrificed to idols. In chapter 9, he goes through it too. He comes back to this idea several times. What happened to the meat sacrificed to idols? It was on sale in the open market. You're free to eat it. But if I invite you into my house for a meal and I tell you this was food sacrificed or meat sacrificed to idols, you are not to eat it then. Because what is my motive for telling you that? We have to understand the culture that was going on. When a Jew was invited to another home to partake of a meal, it was usually customary to say, this is a kosher meal. Because that's usually what a Jew would ask. Was this kosher? Was it prepared properly and right so that I can partake of it? And Paul's sort of given people this example, if you will. Be careful when people invite you in and say, this meat was sacrificed to idol. They're testing you, aren't they? They're trying to see how strong you are in your belief. And we get treated this way all through society. Well, in chapter 9, am I not free? Am I not an apostle? Have I not seen Jesus our Lord? Are you not the result of my work in the Lord? Even though I may not be an apostle to others, surely I am to you. For you are the seal of my apostleship in the Lord. This is my defense to those who sit in judgment on me. Don't we have the right to food and drink? Don't we have the right to take a believing wife along with us, as do the other apostles and the Lord's brothers and Cephas? Or is it only I and Barnabas who must work for a living? Paul sort of jumps back and forth to the subject of, meat, apostleship. He's defending himself. And there seems to be an underlying theme going through chapter after chapter after chapter. Because why else would he be coming back to this? Does the end justify the means? Boils down to that kind of a question. And that's the reason why I've spent the past 20, 30 minutes here talking about what if. I don't mean to upset anybody. I'm not trying to. I'm just trying to get you to think about something. Does the end justify the means? What's our obligations as Christians? Are we to share our faith? No. We are not to share our faith. We are to preach our faith. No. We are to preach the faith, not share it. Is there a difference? You're sharing the truth. You're not sharing your faith. I mean, it's a little technical there, but I mean, you're sharing the truth that you have received. You are preaching the gospel. You're not sharing the gospel. Gospel is pretty much a selfish act. It's what you do to your God. Right? Does that seem fair to say? Yes, we do. But I mean, it comes back to the idea: do the ends justify the means? I've been in several different churches. They say those gospel tracts out there hanging on the wall or on the table, they don't work. Me and my wife are the result of a tract. So it doesn't work. I say that's garbage. There's naysayers everywhere. It's a matter of, do you want to roll up your sleeves and get to work? Next year, we're going to go through an evangelism classes. That means rolling up your sleeves and getting to work. What we should be doing all the time anyway, right? For a lot of people, I don't like that idea. Think about it. Here Paul, him and Barnabas established the church in Corinth. Paul is saying, I have done this. Him and I, when we were first here, we made tents to sustain our living. You didn't provide anything. On his second trip, the Macedonians supported Paul then. The church at Corinth didn't do anything for him. But look here in verse 7, going on down to about 9, 10, or 12. Who serves as a soldier at his own expense? Who plants a vineyard and does not eat of the grapes? Who tends a flock and does not drink of the milk? Do I say this merely from a human point of view? Doesn't the law say the same thing? For it is written in the law of Moses, do not muzzle an ox while it is treading out the grain. Is it about oxen that God is concerned? Surely he says this for us, doesn't he? Yes, this was written for us because when the plowman plows and the thresher threshes, they ought to do so in hopes of sharing in the harvest. If we have sown spiritual seed among you, is it too much if we reap a material harvest from you? If others have this right of support from you, shouldn't we have it all the more? We established this church. We established you. We brought the gospel to you. We labored for you. Shouldn't we reap of that harvest? I've been to, out of all the states and churches I've been to, there's one church that they do not support a preacher. The men get up, and for 2 or 3 weeks they will preach. Then another man will get up and do it. I like that idea. I disagree with it to an extent. Should we have paid preachers? Now, I'm not attacking you, Chuck. Should we have paid preachers? If he labors to preach the gospel here in this area, shouldn't he reap that benefit? Most definitely. He's dedicated his life to do that. He is compelled to do it. Could he make more money doing something else? Yes. So, what do we do about it? I don't know how to argue it any other way, but if somebody is laboring in God's vineyard, he should get the fruit of those grapes. He should. That seems fair and honest, doesn't it? Appeals to all sensitivities. Well, continuing on. But we do not use this right. On the contrary, we have put up with anything rather than hinder the gospel of Christ. Don't you know that those who work in the temple get their food from the temple? Those who serve at the altar share in what is offered on the altar? In the same way, the Lord has commanded that those who preach the gospel should receive their living from the gospel. That answers the question right there, doesn't it? Those who preach the gospel should receive their living from the gospel. Now, unfortunately, here we are in a material world. We'd like to have these finer things in life and have security, a retirement, and what have you. Is there much retirement in the preachers? Yeah. You hear preachers that go until they're 70 and 80 years old. Why don't we take care of our preachers better than what we do? But why are we willing to offer so little and take care of our preachers so little? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You're trying to get a deal. Mm-hmm.
But it just, and that's not just fast person because they're coming at it from the world. That's what you do in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Market, it's try to get that. But that's when we bring in the people in the world in church.
We cheapen the gospel in a way. Yeah.
And I'm not saying that preachers should say, hey, I'll put like $100,000. I think preachers oftentimes sell the ability to preach the gospel for financial.
Mm-hmm.
And both
I can accept and understand all that. Yeah. Well, see, it's just like, okay, I don't care to know what your salary is, and it's not my concern. If it was to double tomorrow, do you think the congregation would let you continue doing what you're doing now, or would they make more demands on your time? They're going to demand a lot more because we got to get our money's worth out of it. And that's sad when we do those kind of things. Yes, Charlie? Mm-hmm. Uh, I know a couple of churches, preacher come in and they hired a new one, a young preacher, and I don't know exactly what the money situation was, but they well paid. The first thing he said was that he was down here at Buckhead shopping in, what's that plaza down there? Lenox? Phipps Plaza? Yeah, okay. The expensive stores. Instead of getting a $20 shirt, he was looking at $120 shirt. And whoa, what kind of money are we paying this preacher? I mean, are we in fact turning him away from the gospel by giving him so much money? The televangelists, they will fight you tooth and nail for what they believe to be the truth. The reason? They're protecting their $2 to $3, $4, $5 million salaries. These mega churches, super, super big. You got 25,000, 30,000 people coming to church. What do you suppose the weekly contribution is like there? 1, 2, 3 million? I want my cut of that. Isn't that our mentality in today's society? I should be getting paid 3 or 4 million to stand up here and tell you jokes and stories. Make you feel good so that when you leave, you come back next week with an even bigger check. Now, am I going to tell you these hard truths that are in the Bible? No. Because that's going to turn you away and you're not coming back. My salary is going to go down. Yeah.
Murder the Son of God.
Yeah. Everything in this world belongs to God. Everything in this universe belongs to God. He doesn't need our money. He wants your purpose in your heart, what you want to give back to Him. He's our loving Father. Why did He have man in the first place? He wanted offspring that He could lavish love and attention and devotion to. Stop to think about when you had kids. What did you do with your kids? I read a story here a couple of months ago about somebody that was saying her kids were starving, and when the state came in and took a look, the kids were malnourished. They were underfed. Of course, mom was 350 pounds. Wait a minute, how can she be 350 pounds and her kids be starved to death? Think about that. It don't take too much thinking to realize there is something wrong there. Something definitely wrong. Did she have love for her children? No. Well, continuing on, but I have not used any of these rights. Now, I'm not writing this in hope that you will do such things for me. I would rather die than have anyone deprive me of this boast. Yet when I preach the gospel, I cannot boast, for I am compelled to preach. Woe to me if I do not preach the gospel. If I preach voluntarily, I have a reward. If not voluntarily, I am simply discharging the trust committed to me. What then is my reward? Just this, that in preaching the gospel, I may offer it free of charge, and so do not make use of my rights in preaching it. Paul's coming pretty strong at him. He's hitting them pretty hard. You guys should have been subsidizing me. You should be taking care of me because I took care of you by bringing you this free of charge. That you're not an apostle.
Paul is Paul's
Attacking. He's only hinting at it. He's biting his tongue as he's telling them, and he's ready to unleash it. He's ready to tell them what he really thinks and what he's really trying to say to them. But he's trying to be polite. He's trying to be nice. He's trying to prick their heart and their minds to understand the grief that they have caused, not only him and Barnabas, but others. Yes. Mm-hmm. It's just like everything we've been talking about here the past 40 minutes. When we preach the gospel, we have to preach all the truth. We can't preach just what is pertinent to our thinking. Because if we preach just what we think, we're omitting something, and that leads to error. That leads to false doctrine. These what-if situations, we've got to be careful when we do some of these things because we are influenced by what we think, what we feel the truth is, and it might not be the truth. And so we're teaching a false doctrine then. We're teaching error then. That's the reason why I hesitate to say some things, but at the same time, I think we need to think on these things a little bit. And will we get an answer today? No. It'll take a lot of time. You need to go through and reread and reread and reread. As you go through a lot of the Bible, oh, I never looked at it that way. Because now, all of a sudden, that seed is planted. And you start thinking about things. Now, does that seem fair? Does that seem honest? Verse 19, though I am free and belong to no man, I make myself a slave to everyone to win as many as possible. To the Jews I became like a Jew, to win the Jews. To those under the law. Who's under the law? Pardon? It says right here, to those under the law I became like one under the law. Although myself I am not under the law. So as to win those under the law, who's he talking to there? But he mentions to the Jews I became a Jew. Now to those under the law I became under the law. Yep. I mean, are you like me? You start reading and you just keep right on going over it and never stop and think about it?